So, hi there, everybody. Welcome to this session delivered by myself and Simon Craddock. I will go on to introduce us both in detail. But this session is Wardship Proceedings' latest key issues for family lawyers. Now, in general terms, wardship is a highly topical area of the law, an area of the law that has been in existence prior to the implementation of the Children Act 1989. They are proceedings heard only in the High Court. They are specialist proceedings, but there are proceedings in general terms to whether you apply, work in private, public, or international child abduction work. Wardship can arise, and it will arise often in your work, regardless of what area of children law you work in family law proceedings. This session will focus primarily on the powers that can be found within the inherent jurisdiction in wardship proceedings, particularly in relation to the most common area it is utilized in, child abduction. And so if I go on to the aims first and foremost, and there you go. So whiles I've gone on to explain why we're talking about this issue, and to introduce a bit about both of us and the aims. Now, both Simon as a solicitor and me as a barrister have different roles, duties, and obligations in these wardship proceedings. And Simon's going to go on to touch upon that. But the important point to focus on is these proceedings are very complex and teamwork is very, very important. And therefore, you as solicitors need to know what you should be doing yourselves, but also you should be knowing what barristers must do and how you can work with a barrister. And the same with barristers. It's really important that we need to know what we can do, but we really have to be sure of what solicitors do and how they do it, and we need assistance because wardship proceedings contain a number of obligations and there can be lots of tricky issues, particularly when it comes to dealing with tipstaff, filing of documents, and also legal aid provisions. And so teamwork in this area and insight into both professions is essential. And so the aims to which we will be going through in this session, we will be talking about the practice and procedure for cases warranting wardship. We will be, and I will be in particular, considering some of the cases in 2023 to 2024 and the practical provisions from that. We will, throughout this session, talk about the difference between the inherent jurisdiction and wardship because they both have a clear link with one another, but actually a lot of powers fall within the inherent jurisdiction, and wardship is just a terminology in some ways. We will look at the role of wardship in proceedings generally, which will deal with abduction, public and private law, and I will touch upon how they apply to each area when I come onto it. But the general focus, and for reasons which will be very clear, is child abduction. And one thing to emphasize on the issue of child abduction, that falls within public law proceedings and private law proceedings, because private law disputes, they can be an abduction. In public law disputes where there's a local authority involved, there can be an abduction. There can be a risk of abduction in both private and public law proceedings. So the overall umbrella is proceedings relating to children. But just to emphasize, public and private law are, in fact, dealing with child abduction disputes as well. And we'll also consider the obligations of the powers and the courts that they contain within wardship proceedings. And so now I'm going to go to Simon, who will talk a bit more about these issues. Over to you, Simon.
Yeah, thank you, Manny. So Manny's been a bit confrontational there with putting solicitors versus barristers, but basically we do work in tandem.